The Thackray Museum of Medicine, a true tale of ghosts and medical horror. In the heart of Leeds, tucked away in a former workhouse building, stands the Thackray Museum of Medicine. This unassuming museum is dedicated to the history of medicine and healthcare, offering visitors a glimpse into the evolving practices that shaped the medical field over centuries. It is a place where people can explore the gruesome, fascinating, and sometimes terrifying developments that have led to modern day healthcare. However, the museum's unsettling reputation for paranormal activity suggests that there are things about its past that refuse to remain buried. The Thackray Museum of Medicine occupies a building with a long and haunted history, a place where death and suffering were all too common. Before it became a museum, the building was the site of a former Leeds Union workhouse, later transformed into the Leeds Infirmary. Here, the sick and dying were cared for in grim conditions, and the building was a silent witness to countless untimely deaths, medical experimentation, and the pain of those who had nowhere else to run. Many of the spirits believed to haunt the museum are said to be the souls of the patients who once suffered within its walls, their fates sealed with disease, neglect, and human cruelty. The Thackray Museum's reputation as one of the most haunted locations in Leeds is built on decades of reports from staff, visitors, and ghost hunters alike. There are claims of sightings, eerie sounds, and unexplained phenomena that make it a popular location for those seeking a brush with the supernatural. The building that houses the Thackray Museum was originally built in the 19th century as a Leeds Union workhouse in 1861. At the time, workhouses were grim institutions designed to house the impoverished, offering food and shelter in exchange for hard labour. Those who ended up here were often destitute, suffering from disease, and vulnerable to the harsh conditions of Victorian England. The workhouse was a place of harsh discipline, physical punishment, and overcrowding. But perhaps more than anything, it was a place of death. The workhouse's infirmary, which would later become part of the Leeds Infirmary and eventually the Thackray Museum, was the setting for countless medical experiments, many of them cruel and unsanctioned, for the sick and dying. The infirmary was the last stop before the grave. Medical treatments were rudimentary at best, and patients were often subjected to experimental procedures and treatments that would now be considered barbaric. Death, disease, and suffering were part of the daily routine, leaving behind a building steeped in tragedy. The building's transition from workhouse to medical institution did little to alleviate the suffering that took place within. Patients were regularly subjected to harsh conditions, with little regard for their comfort or dignity. The hallways of the workhouse and later the infirmary echoed with the cries of the ill, the dying, and those who were simply forgotten by the world outside. When the workhouse was closed, the building's dark history was left behind, but the spirits of those who had lived and died there seemed unwilling to leave. Today, the Thackray Museum is dedicated to telling the story of medicine's evolution, from the gruesome treatments of the past to the cutting edge practices of today. The museum's exhibitions showcase everything from early surgical instruments to the history of public health, and it is a fascinating experience for anyone interested in the field of medicine. But for many, there is something far more unsettling lurking beneath the surface, something that cannot be explained by science or logic. Reports of paranormal activity within the museum are numerous, and many of them point to the building's tragic past. Staff and visitors alike have experienced strange and inexplicable phenomena that suggest the spirits of the workhouse and infirmary are still very much present. One of the most commonly reported apparitions at the Thackray Museum is that of a woman dressed in the traditional garb of a Victorian workhouse matron. This ghostly figure is said to haunt the upper floors of the museum, where the workhouse dormitories once stood. Staff members who have encountered the matron's spirit describe her as a tall, imposing figure, often seen standing at the end of a hallway, watching silently. The matron is believed to have been a strict and unsympathetic figure in life, responsible for overseeing the workhouse's inhabitants and enforcing the harsh rules of the institution. Her presence in the museum is often accompanied by a chilling sense of dread, as if her stern gaze follows you wherever you go. Some have reported hearing her footsteps echoing in the empty halls, only to turn around and find no one there. Others claim to have felt a cold hand on their shoulder or seen fleeting glimpses of her figure out of the corner of their eyes. Her apparition is not one of comfort or peace, rather, it is a chilling reminder of the harsh conditions once endured by those who were housed there. Some believe the matron's spirit is forever tied to the building, unable to move on due to the cruelty and suffering that took place under her watchful eye. Another common ghostly encounter at the Thackray Museum is that of a patient who's said to roam the halls of the former infirmary. This apparition is often described as a man or a woman, dressed in tattered hospital clothing, wandering the museum's exhibits with a blank expression on their face. Visitors who have encountered the phantom patient describe a feeling of intense sadness or confusion when they see this ghost, as if the spirit is lost, searching for something that can never be found. Some report hearing soft disembodied whispers while they stand near the spirit, or feeling a cold rush of air as if something is passing by them. The phantom patient's apparition is often seen near the area of the museum dedicated to the history of medical treatments and surgeries, where many of the building's most painful events occurred. It's said that the patient is one of the many who passed away within the walls of the infirmary, their death unmarked and their life forgotten. This lost soul seems trapped in the building, doomed to wander the halls forever. One of the most disturbing and heartbreaking paranormal reports come from the lower floors of the museum, where the children of the workhouse were once housed. Many of the children who lived here were sick, orphaned, or abandoned, and many died young due to disease or neglect. Visitors and staff have reported hearing the sounds of a child crying in the empty halls, followed by the soft shuffle of footsteps, as though a small child is moving through the space. The sound of the crying child is often heard late at night when the museum is closed and quiet. Those who have heard it describe the cry as pitiful, filled with fear and longing. Some say that the child's cries seem to echo from the walls, reverberating through the hallways, but when they go to investigate, the sound disappears as suddenly as it started. Others report seeing the fleeting figure of the small child standing in the shadows just out of reach. There are even accounts of the sound of a child's laughter, followed by the sensation of small hands brushing against the visitor's legs. It is believed that this child is one of the many who died under the harsh conditions of the workhouse, forever bound to the place where they were abandoned. While the Thackray Museum today serves as a space to honour the history of medicine and medical advancements, it is also a reminder of the suffering, death, and cruelty that took place in the building long before it became a museum. The spirits of the past seem to linger in the hallways and rooms, unable or unwilling to leave the place that holds their memories. For many, the museum's exhibitions serve as a chilling reminder of just how far medicine has come, but also of how far humanity has yet to go. The ghosts of the workhouse and the infirmary still haunt the museum, their restless souls trapped in a place that once offered no hope, only despair. Whether you are visiting to learn about the history of medicine or seeking an encounter with the supernatural, one thing is certain: the Thackray Museum of Medicine is a place where the past is never truly gone, and where the spirits of those who suffered here still wait in the shadows, lingering in the forgotten corners of the building. In the stillness of the museum, the cries of the lost, the footsteps of the dead, and the gaze of the stern matron serve as a chilling reminder that some histories are too painful to be forgotten, and some souls too haunted to rest.